The British miracle against the Soviet IS-3. The tale of the FV-4005. Hey everyone, if you're into epic stories about tanks, Cold War drama, and wild engineering feats, you're in for a treat. Hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. A parade that shook the world. Berlin, September 7th, 1945. World War II has just ended, and the Allies are celebrating their victory. At the Brandenburg Gate, the victory parade is in full swing. Then, out of nowhere, 52 Soviet IS-3 tanks from the 2nd Guards Tank Army rumble onto the scene. These steel beasts, with their thick, slanted armor and menacing look, leave everyone speechless. The Western military leaders, who were just toasting to victory, suddenly realize they've got nothing to match this Soviet monster. The IS-3 was a game-changer. Its cleverly angled armor made it nearly invincible against most guns of the time. Its 122mm cannon could punch through almost anything in its path. The Allies watched in awe and dread, knowing that if things went south, their tanks wouldn't stand a chance. This moment sparked a wild arms race that defined the early years of the Cold War. By 1947, just 2 years after the war, the Cold War was in full swing. Former allies were now eyeing each other suspiciously. For the British and Americans, the Soviet Union became the main rival, and the IS-3 was the symbol of its might. They needed to figure out how to counter it fast. In the United States and Britain, engineers and military planners burned the midnight oil, dreaming up machines that could outmatch the IS-3. The British, true to their practical yet ambitious nature, decided not to reinvent the wheel. They chose the reliable Centurion tank as their starting point. The Centurion was a solid machine from the end of the war, but its standard gun was no match for the IS-3. This led to the birth of the FV-4004 project, the first step toward building a British tank killer. FV-4004, a bumpy start. The idea behind the FV-4004 was straightforward. Slap a powerful 120mm rifled gun, called the L1A1, onto the Centurion's chassis. The hope was that this gun could punch through the IS-3's armor from a safe distance. The British figured this new machine would stay nimble like a medium tank, not get too heavy, and be easy to produce. But as often happens, things didn't go quite as planned. To fit the new gun, they had to redesign the turret, which ended up being twice as tall as the Centurion's original. This made the FV-4004 look a bit like the Soviet KV-2, with its towering, boxy turret. The tank's weight ballooned by 10 tons, and its speed dropped below the Centurion's already modest 35 kilometers per hour. The turret's armor, from what we know, was about the same as the Centurion's, though exact details are murky. The L1A1 gun could penetrate around 200 millimeters of armor from 1 kilometer away, enough to take out an IS-3. But here's the catch. The IS-3 could do the same to the FV-4004 from that distance. It was a stalemate, and the British weren't happy with just breaking even. They wanted a clear edge, especially with rumors swirling that the Soviets were already cooking up something even tougher. By 1951, the FV-4004 was ready, but the military wasn't impressed. A tie with the IS-3 wasn't good enough, and the Cold War was heating up. They needed something revolutionary. The FV-4004 was scrapped, and the stage was set for the bolder FV-4005. FV-4005, tank or self-propelled gun. The British decided that to beat the IS-3 and whatever else the Soviets might roll out, they needed something truly insane. Enter the QFL-4, a 183mm gun, the biggest tank gun in the world at the time. This beast could blast through 300 millimeters of armor from 2 to 3 kilometers away, making it a threat to any tank, existing or planned. But, as you might guess, a gun this massive came with some serious headaches. Challenge 1. Size and weight. The QFL-4 gun weighed about 4 tons and its ammo was no joke either. Each shell tipped the scales at 72 kilograms, with the charge adding another 33 kilograms. Loading these by hand was out of the question, so the engineers built a drum-type loading mechanism. The loader's job was reduced to operating this system, but that was only part of the problem. The turret needed to house this monster gun was enormous. At 3.6 meters tall, the FV4005 became the tallest British tank ever. For comparison, the Soviet KV-2 was 30 centimeters shorter, and only the German Maus was slightly taller by 6 centimeters. To protect the crew, the turret was covered with just 14 millimeters of armor, barely enough to stop a heavy machine gun. To keep the turret from crumpling under the gun's recoil, they added reinforcing ribs, but this only made the tank heavier. The FV4005 tipped the scales at 60 tons, pushing the Centurion's 40-ton chassis to its absolute limit. Speed and agility were terrible, and its height made it a sitting duck on the battlefield. Challenge 2. Recoil. The QFL-4's recoil was unreal. Nearly 90 tons of force. To keep the tank from shaking itself apart, they installed heavy-duty recoil dampeners. This helped, but not enough. To manage the remaining recoil, they added a spade-like device at the back of the hull that dug into the ground before firing. This let the tank shoot straight ahead, but firing at an angle was trickier. If the turret turned too far, the recoil could flip the whole machine. The solution? Limit the turret's rotation to 90 degrees, 45 degrees left and right. This meant the FV4005 couldn't fire all around, effectively turning it from a tank into a self-propelled gun. The British didn't even bother designing a full turret at first. They tested the gun's mounting system on its own for months before wrapping it in an armored shell. Testing and the end of the dream. By 1955, the FV4005 was ready for trials. Over 2 years, it fired 133 shots. But here's the kicker. No crew was on board. They used crash test dummies instead, which suggests even the designers weren't sure the tank was safe. The dummies made it through, giving hope that a real crew might survive too. The QFL-4's destructive power was jaw-dropping. No tank in the world could withstand its shells. But by 1957, the writing was on the wall. The project was shut down. Why? Technology had moved on. In 1958, the British adopted the Malkara anti-tank missile, which could be mounted on light armored vehicles. These missiles were cheaper, more mobile, and just as effective as the FV4005. The bulky, heavy, and expensive FV4005 couldn't compete. The project was scrapped, and the lone prototype was sent to a museum. Today, you can see it at the east entrance of the Tank Museum in Bovington, England, a relic of a bygone era when bigger guns seemed like the answer to everything. To understand why the FV4005 never made it to production, let's talk about the world it was born into. Post-World War II, Britain was broke. The war had drained the economy, and military spending was a huge burden. Building a prototype like the FV4005 cost millions of pounds, and mass production would have been a budget killer, according to historical records. The Cold War added more pressure. The Soviets weren't just building tanks, they were diving into missile technology. The rise of anti-tank guided missiles like the Malkara changed everything. These weapons were cheaper to make, easier to use, and could be fitted onto nimble vehicles. The FV4005, for all its firepower, was a dinosaur in a world moving towards smaller, smarter weapons. Honestly, the FV4005 is a classic case of ambition crashing into reality. The British wanted a tank to dominate the Soviets, but they got bogged down by technical and financial roadblocks. It's like when you set out to build something amazing, a dream car, a killer app, but overlook the practical stuff that trips you up. The FV4005 could have been legendary if missiles hadn't stolen the show. But it's also a reminder of how fast technology moves. What's cutting edge today can be obsolete tomorrow. Still, I can't help but admire the British engineers' guts. They went all in on the biggest tank gun ever, and that kind of boldness deserved props. The FV4005 story isn't just about a tank. It's about human ingenuity, big dreams, and the harsh lessons of progress. The British set out to build a miracle weapon to counter Soviet tanks, but they were outpaced by new tech. The FV4005 remains a fascinating footnote, a what could have been that never saw combat. Its hulking frame at the Bovington Tank Museum still stands as a testament to an era when the world teetered on the edge of another war. Hey, if you love this deep dive into tanks and history, smash that subscribe button and join the crew. Drop a comment below. Do you think the FV4005 was a stroke of genius or a total flop? Got ideas for more stories? Let me know. Let's keep exploring the wild world of tech and history together.